Welcome, everybody. It's so good to be with you all. It's so awesome to come into this space where so many of us are doing the same thing and feeling the same emotions, the same roller coaster, the same kind of dreams and goals. Like, just take a moment to soak in how awesome it is that Catherine is able to host us here. Pop some hearts in the chat for them for putting this together. And I'm just so happy to be here with all of you. You are my people through and through and through. And I am so excited to talk about marketing today because I get this question a lot about how to get more orders. And we're going to dive into all of that today. I want you to have a pen and paper in front of you because this is not a fluff workshop. We're going to co-work tonight. We're going to actually get some stuff on paper, make some plans, set some goals. We're going to work together on this. So make sure you've got a pen and paper in front of you, or your phone or your tablet, whatever it is, so that you can actually write some stuff down for yourself. And for those of you who maybe haven't met me before, like Emily said, I run the Out of Home Baker. It's on Instagram as well as a website where I'm able to share my passion for baking business with people like you and teach you how to have success in your food business, whether it's baking or something else. I particularly am a cake artist. I've been doing wedding cakes for about 3 years. 3 years ago, I had this dream to maybe do wedding cakes and maybe become like a wedding cake designer, maybe become like a known brand in my state. And I started out with pretty much nothing except for belief and hope that it was possible. And I figured it out along the way. And so 3 years later, I've got this awesome, thriving business that I love so much. And it has allowed me to provide for my family. It allowed us to buy our first home. It allows me to be home with my kids and take control of my schedule and my life and my creativity. And I love all of it. All of it. It's so much fun. And so that's why I started the Out of Home Baker. It's been such a blessing for me. And I feel so driven by the purpose that because I've been in your shoes, because I've been in your place, I want to turn around and be that resource to you that I wish I'd had when I started. I wish I had had a guide. I wish I'd had step by step by step and courses and just tips and video conferences like this with someone to help me figure out what I was doing and get there faster. So that's my goal for you, is that you can get to success faster than I did. And when I talk about success, I'm not talking about followers. I'm not talking about brand deals. I'm not talking about like becoming this famous baker. Success is you being able to use your creativity to make the money you want to make without sacrificing the rest of your life, right? Without losing the whole purpose of why you're doing it because you're so busy running your business. Success is when you get to just really step in to your power as a business owner and take control of things and enjoy it and run it instead of letting it run you. So that's why we're here tonight. Marketing is a huge part of that. So as a coach, one of my kind of big goals I'm going to share with you, it's on a sticky note, like in my notebook with all my goals and plans and projects that I want to do. And one thing that I really, really, really want to do is have this big retreat for bakers and food entrepreneurs where we can get together at somewhere really nice and have a few days to talk business, to work together, to have classes and do some relaxation. And so we're going to pretend, yeah, right? You all want to come, right? So let's pretend for just a second that I have all the money in the world and I am now inviting you all to just come to this retreat, right? You're totally in, right? Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. So I want you to tell me in the chat, how are you going to get to the retreat? What method of transportation are you going to take to come to my retreat? Tell me in the chat. How are you going to get here? Randy says drive, car, fly. Nice. Yes, please. Plane. Nice. Okay. So we're missing a key point of information here. There you go, Shauna. Shauna, you got it. Yes. Where are we going? Right? You're not going to fly if it's right next to you. You're not going to drive if the retreat's in Hawaii. You're going to jump on a plane. The destination matters, right? And so the first question that we have to answer before we choose a method of transportation is, where are we going, right? Because that totally influences how we decide we're going to get there. Marketing is exactly the same. When we go to market, too often we jump straight to the how am I going to get there, right? How am I going to reach customers? I'm going to be on Instagram. I'm going to do this market. I'm going to put out business cards. I'm going to, pay this subscription to be on this wedding site, to whatever it is. And we're so wrapped up in the how that we don't even stop to consider, what is the destination? Where are we hoping that our message is going to get to? Because once we actually stop to think about, where am I trying to go? Who am I trying to reach? That influences a lot your method of transportation, how you're going to get that message out. So before we talk about how to market, we need to know why. We need to know what we're doing, where we're trying to go, who we're trying to reach, where they are. It all comes back to who our target customer is. Your customer drives all of it. And this is really the difference between running a business and running a hobby. We've probably all been there at some moment where we kind of transition from calling ourselves a hobby baker or a hobby, food person to an actual business. It's a really big mindset shift to step from hobby to business. How many of you have felt that shift? I'm guessing a lot of you probably call yourself a business by now because you're here at this business marketing coaching session that we're doing. So this is what the difference is from hobby to business. When you're running this as a hobby, the only person who you care about, whether they like it or not, is yourself. That's what a hobby is. You're your only target audience is just yourself. It only matters what you think and if you enjoy it. When you run a business, you care about what someone else has to say. You care about their opinion and their perspective, because it's the customer that drives the business. Business centers around solving problems for customers. Businesses are able to survive because they provide solutions to problems that people have. And it's kind of funny to think of food and baked goods, like novelty specialty products like we make, as like solving problems, right? But they actually do. And people only buy things because it solves a problem. Our brains are literally wired so that we're kind of in survival mode. Our brains are wired to only do things and only pay attention to things that matter to us thriving. And so whenever we buy something, that is our brain aligning with this idea of, this is important for me to be able to thrive and survive. So even when someone goes to buy a cake, to buy a sourdough bread, there is some way that is aligning with a need that they have. And a lot of times it's an emotional need. Like sometimes it's that surface level physical need of, I need food, I need something to serve my guests, but it actually goes down even deeper. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. So before we dive into any of the marketing channels that exist, we have to know who our target customer is, because we have to know what their problems are, what their life is like, what is the value that we actually add to their lives. So step number one for good marketing as a food entrepreneur in business, identify who your target customer is. How do we do that? I'm going to walk you through it. This is where you're going to grab your pen and your paper. We're going to write some thoughts down. The first thing that you are going to do is analyze your product as a solution. Think about what it is that you sell. So on your paper, I want you to analyze your product for just a second as a solution and identify the customer group that can benefit from it. So if you do birthday cakes, how is that a solution to a problem? And I want you to just jot down whatever thoughts you have. This is a brain dump. Don't worry about your answers. whatever pops into your head. We're just looking at it. We're just taking a step back. How is your product a solution? Who does it serve? Who do you think it can serve? If you do smash cakes, you help moms, young moms, maybe older moms. You help create those memories, those moments. You help have food for people to eat. You help create a special gift for someone. It's a photo op. It's an event at the party. Like, think of all of those ways that it solves a problem. And like I said, the problem often goes deeper than just, I need to eat food. I need to get calories. I often analyze wedding cakes because that's what I do. And so when I think of my brides and my grooms, my couples that I work with, you know, what is at the heart of what they're trying to achieve? And they're really trying to achieve this, like, the biggest day of their lives, right? They're getting married, and it's a huge celebration. It's a huge, you know, moment. And so everything that they do during that day is supposed to mark this new step in their lives, this new like connection of families. And so my cake should incorporate them. It should incorporate their story. It should be what they want. It should be like this first thing shared together, this first dessert shared together as a couple. And it should bring everyone together in that moment. And it should be delicious and all of those things, right? Because when we involve, when we're having a moment, when we're having a celebration and you involve all five senses, suddenly that's such much more potent of a memory, right? Much more potent of a moment. So when food's involved, when it's good food, that memory, you're going to remember it even more. It brings in all the senses. You smell that delicious like cupcake or that cake, you taste it, you feel the texture. It's all five senses. That's why it's such a potent memory for people. Okay. So you're looking at your product, thinking it of as a solution, and you have to get outside your own head a little bit, because too often, because we can make it, we devalue it, right? And we don't always see how it's solving a problem. So really stretch yourself to put yourself in the shoes of a customer. Sometimes it helps to think of a time when you were a customer buying something similar or something on a high level like that. And what was important to you and how did it solve a problem for you? Because when you really look at your own experience, you start to go, oh, no, I get it. I think I get it. How there was that more emotional need that drove my buying decision. Okay, so step one, we're looking at our product. The next thing you can look at to help identify who your target customer is, because that's what we're doing. Who's the target customer? Second thing, look at your past customers. You've already got data to back up who is your target customer. So take a second, right? Number two, let's analyze who are your past customers. We're going to look at two things. We want demographics and we want psychographics. Demographics are like the set information, like statistics that you can kind of find on a person. How old are they? Where are they from? Where do they live? Like, how much money do they make? How many kids do they have? What's their job, right? And kind of just look at that for a second. Look for patterns and just write down, think of the customers that you've had recently. Think of the customers who have been your most pleased customers. Who were they? And what was it? What was it about your product that they loved so much? One of my biggest fans, her name is Katie. She was one of my brides. I did a cake for her almost 2 years ago. I think it was over almost 3 years ago. I did her wedding cake, and she still comments on every single reel, every single post to let everybody know that her wedding cake was the best cake ever. And she's always chiming in. And so I always look at her. What was so special about that? She was older and she was getting married at a time where it was like, it was huge. It was a big thing. It was her first marriage. And it was so personal. We designed a cake that was the colors, it had their dog on the back, and it just spoke to them. And it was so personal, and it was the perfect flavor for them. And so she has never, ever forgotten it. It was one of their favorite parts of their wedding day. And so I analyzed that. Okay, Let's break it out. What was it about that made it so special? And what was it about her that made her the perfect fit for my business? Look at your customers, right? Learn from them. You can talk to your customers too. You can talk to them. We're going to get to that. You can also look at your competition, right? Look at their customers and who are they serving? Think about that for a sec. Who are the fellow bakers or bakeries around you? Who are they serving? Who are their customers? Write down things about them that you know. And some of these might be assumptions. It's important to validate your assumptions, right? And not just go off of what we think. It's good to actually maybe do some digging, maybe do some talking to people to actually figure out if you're correct in your assumptions. It's called validation. That's literally something in entrepreneurship that is taught. You have to validate your idea, you validate the value. So look at your competition, right? And I say competition because I really believe that there is enough business to go around for everybody, no matter where you are. And often we put on this lens where we assume the market is so saturated that there's so many other people who already do what I do. How could I possibly get in there? How could I possibly, jump in? How is it going to work when it's this feeling of scarcity of customers, like there's not enough people. And I did a little bit of math. I'm in this city that's got 6,000 as a population. It's a pretty small town. And if I were to only take orders here in this town of 6,000 people, I was like, what if, let's just say 3% of those people would be interested in buying a custom cake? And 3% of 6,000 is 180 people. So even if there's one other baker here in the city, that's still 90 orders a year for each of us, which is a lot. And that's awesome. So there are people ready to order, and we're going to get to how to actually reach them. So don't worry about the competition. When you evaluate your competition and who their customers are, do it unbiasedly. Do it through a lens of like curiosity and not a lens of like fear and like, oh, that they're scaring me because they're getting so many customers and that makes me feel really uncomfortable. It makes me feel like I'm behind. That's not the story here. There's plenty of customers who don't know about that person, but they know you and they want what you have. So look at just look at who your customers serve, just to get an idea of what's out there. And maybe notice, are there any gaps? Is there anything, any way that your fellow bakeries around aren't serving customers in the way that maybe they need to be served? Is there anything missing that maybe you could step in and fill? That's a great thing to analyze as well. As we're jotting down these ideas and thoughts, they're coming from our perspective, right? We think that this is who our target customer is. We think that this is who our competition is serving. And validating is going out and actually figuring out if our assumptions are correct, right? Because if we're just operating off of what we think, then we might not have the full story. We might be seeing it from a different perspective. So actually talking to some people, talking to your customers, talking to other professionals in your industry. If you're a wedding cake person, or even if you're a birthday cake person, whatever you sell, that's the next bit. Look at other professionals in your industry who align with your product and the kind of solution and the kind of market that it serves, and who are their customers. Look at event planners, venues, photographers, anyone who kind of aligns with that, with kind of where you are. And you might find businesses that surprise you, where you're like, oh, I didn't realize we kind of line up in the people that we serve. But as you look at that, you're gonna start to find some more information about who these people are, because we need to know how to get to them, right? So I look at my business. Let's take I've got two, right? I have my Hobble Creek Cake Co. That was my first baking business that I started 3 years ago. And then I moved And so now, as an experiment, I've started a new one in this new city just to kind of put my strategies and my coaching to the test and to just show that process again. It's been really, really fun and such a roller coaster to do it all again. So I've got two of them. So let's look at Hopple Creek Cake Co. And I would look at the product and the solution, identify my customers. I've already kind of said I serve more of older brides. People get married pretty young around here in Utah. But I tend to serve people who are 25 to 35, people who have longer engagements. I know that from looking at my past customers. The cakes that I've done that have fit my design style and have been the most satisfied are the people who have more of a budget and they have a longer engagement period because they're saving up for that wedding. That's something that I know about them, that they might come to me a year and a half in advance. And so that helps me know, like, this is how far ahead I'm planning, because this is the planning cycle of the people that I serve. I look at my competitors, which I don't even call them that. I call them my friends. The people around here who bake are some of my favorite people. And Christine, yay, Utah is great. I love Utah. I love it. We have great things going on here. So around here, I'm one of the known palette knife artists. I do the palette knife painted cakes. And that was kind of a gap in the market that I was able to fill. It's a higher end technique. It's a little more difficult. And so that is my specialty, and I'm able to kind of be the go-to person for that. And then I look at my competition, and there's people who serve like the fondant cakes and like the really elegant technical fondant styles. And that's definitely not me, but I like to look at, okay, who are they serving? What venues are they working with? And I just kind of, piece together some of that information. And then I look at the different professionals, some of the wedding planners that I know. I get to know who their customers are. And I do that by just having conversations with those people, by making connections and working to support each other. That way we're able to help each other get the customers that we need. So these are good questions. How to differentiate, how to know what the gap is, what's missing. The only way you're going to know, this is exactly what I was saying, is by talking to people. Too many bakers quit before they've really been able to experiment with who they're serving. And I feel like we get that frustrated feeling of, gosh, I don't know where my customers are and I'm not getting the orders I want. And we kind of step back before we really kept working at it to figure it out. I just want you to get comfortable with the idea of having conversations with people about your product. I always tell people that one of the main reasons why you don't get the orders that you want is you take a step back and you look at it, right? And there's a couple of reasons. Like, the first one is usually visibility. People just don't know about you. But then you can also look at what's the product I'm selling? Is it actually what people want to buy, or is it what I want to sell? And I have a story about that. Let's take a step back. Let's go back to last year. And it's St. Patrick's Day. It's like a year ago almost. And I was offering a class. It was a St. Patrick's cake class, right? And it was $35 to come and be a part of this class. And then this year, I'm offering a wedding cake master class, and it's $480 to come be a part of this class. Which class do you think filled up faster, the $35 one or the $480 one? Yeah, good job. You guys probably get that because you're my target market. You're like, that's the one that I would buy, right? That's the one I would come to. That class that was $480 filled up in less than 24 hours. The St. Patrick's one last year, the cake class, was canceled because I didn't even get enough registration. And here's why. This is the difference. When I went to launch that St. Patrick's Day class, I was only thinking about what I wanted. I was like, I want to teach this flavor. I want it to be a demo class. I want everyone to come and just sit and enjoy and watch and learn. And then we eat cake and it'll be just kind of like this fun night out. But what I was known for was actually doing these wedding cakes. And so people didn't want to sign up for that class because it wasn't what they wanted. I was putting out there what I wanted. And it was a really, really good lesson in listen to ask people what they want and then just do what they want you to do and make the thing in the way that actually serves them. A lot of people feel nervous to get feedback from customers because it's scary, because we wrap ourselves in to our work. And it's like, as artists, a part of our heart goes into that, right? And we attach a lot of our own personal, just like worth and self-esteem and validation to whether or not people like what we do. And a lot of us, sometimes we don't get feedback because we don't ask for it, right? But the thing that you're honestly missing, one of the biggest components that you're missing to get yourself to move forward is feedback. You need data. You're in a science experiment right now. That's literally what you're doing. Running a business is a science experiment. You are having a hypothesis like, oh, I think that if I sell this, people will like it. And so you put it out there, right? Maybe you've never had customers before. Maybe you're just walking up to it fresh out of the gate and you're going to put this sale out there. Maybe some of you did that for Valentine's last week. And maybe it doesn't go the way that you want. Great. Now you've got some feedback. Now you have an opportunity to learn from that data and you analyze it. Okay, what went wrong and what can I change next time? They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So if you're just going to keep pitching the same product, the same kind of sale to the same people, and it's not working, it's time to take a step back and look at the variables. Okay, what's going on here? Am I talking to the wrong people? Am I marketing it in the wrong place? Am I doing the product not quite right? Which in the case of my class, that's what was going on. It was the wrong class. It was not what people wanted, even though it would have been a great class. And even though maybe there was people that would have benefited from it, but my audience, that wasn't who I was talking to. I had the same thing happen one year. Me and my sister decided to do a Christmas fundraiser sale. And we decided to make cookie dough and sell cookie dough because we thought, then we don't have to bake anything. Then people can just get cookie dough and they can make their cookies. And when the sale was over and we looked at how it had happened, we really didn't make any money and we didn't have a ton of sales. And we realized people didn't want cookie dough, they just wanted cookies. And it was really simple and it was such a good lesson. And so after I had that flop of like, okay, well, that didn't work, I always kept that in mind. Like, all right, I need to include the opinion of the people that I'm trying to reach. I need to know who I'm trying to reach. And I need to actually get their feedback. You need that. That is what allows you to move forward. Negative feedback is just as good as positive feedback. Some of the more negative customer experiences I've had have been the best building blocks for becoming a more professional home baker. I'm going to pop into the chat and see what I'm missing there. I've tried so many things, Jessica says, from asking directly to posting on social media, but it's so rare that I get feedback, though I suppose repeat customers are a form of feedback. Definitely. Those repeat customers definitely are. Have you talked to those repeat customers? I'm curious. Have you like reached out to them individually? When I want a review, when I want to actually connect with specific people, I send them a direct message. I send them a direct email. I make it personal. I try not to copy and paste something. I make sure they know that I'm talking to them. And often I'll get a response if I talk to somebody directly. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything else. Yeah. The first point we're looking at is just looking at your own past data of customers. The first thing we jotted down was, let's just look at our product and look at our sales, look at our past customers, what's worked, what were the more successful ones, and we look at who they are, right? And we run with it and we test it. So you can shift what you're doing towards like what you think is that target customer and what you think those needs are. So if you're looking at your past customers and you're like, oh my gosh, the people who have bought, this product from me, from this kind of target market, they've been my happiest customers, they're my repeat customers, I'm going to speak more towards them. I'm going to start to really push my business more towards these kind of people. So I'm starting to do a little bit of Facebook marketing with my courses, because I know there are hundreds of thousands of bakers out there who are just trying to get to the next step. And so I'm trying to connect them with my resources. So I've been doing some Facebook marketing. And the first thing that you do when you run an ad on Facebook is you run several little ads at very low cost, right? Like $5 ads. And you change things up, the photo, the copy, which is like the text, the call to action, and you change things up and you run all of them for $5. And then after a few days, you look at the data and you say, who did this reach? And Facebook will tell you, it'll say, oh, this age from these cities, these countries, these kind of likes. And you can adjust your audience in Facebook ads. You can make it target specific people and run different test audiences, and then actually see which of your ads did the same. And Facebook and Instagram ads are the same. If you run an ad through Facebook, it'll show up on Instagram as well. And so that's what I'm in the middle of doing right now. And it was really interesting to see how one ad completely outperformed the other ones. It was a more specific audience, and the image was just, it spoke more to the people. And I think the copy, the text that I had written hit a little bit more. And so now I'm going to take that one and maybe do some variations of it. And I'm going to keep experimenting, testing until I find who my people really are. And then I'm going to run the big ad. Then I'll put more money towards that one. But I'm not going to put, $1,000 towards just guessing who my audience is. I'm going to figure it out first and then actually be there. So am I able to tell you who your target customer is? Not totally. We have similarities in our audiences, but there are subtle differences in our markets and who the people are. And so your job, right? We've got some thoughts now. You've brainstormed some things. Your job is to now pay attention and to be very conscious about who are your followers, who is commenting, who is ordering, who are you interacting with that is liking your product, and to do some experimenting, do some testing, and keep that in mind, because everything about your customer drives your marketing message and drives where you're going to show up, because they keep you in business. Your business is about serving them. So that is all step one of marketing. Identify your target customer. And I have to say too, it changes. It might not always be the same. Let me throw that in there while you're trying to figure out your target customer. But just so you know that that's a thing too, as you shift and change as a baker, some of you might be starting out. And so you offer a lot of different things because you're still learning, like, which products do you actually like selling? Which ones are you best at? You're kind of still building your brand, and that's okay. So you might have a lot of different clients, a lot of different types of markets and customers. And then as you really start to specialize, you'll start to really understand like who you speak to. When I started my baking business, I wanted to do wedding cakes. I just wanted to do any wedding cakes for anyone. I didn't care. I just wanted wedding cake clients. And I knew that at the local university at BYU, that is where students meet. That is where they get married. And a lot of them are from out of state and they don't know the local area. And so they're going to just, set up their wedding with whoever they can happen to find. And so I specifically went and did a farmer's market at the university. It was the only way as an off-campus vendor I could go and be a part of something on campus. And so I set up a booth And I was very intentional about showing up to this market. I brought a wedding cake dummy. I was decorating the cake while I was there at the market. And then I was selling some of my good flavors. And I was taking people's emails as they're coming up to me and they're like, oh my gosh, you do cakes. I'm getting engaged. I'm like, let's talk right now. Like, when are you getting married? Can I give you my email? Like, let's set an appointment right now. Let's actually get this cake booked. And I was able to book a few brides from that. And it was great. And the next year, I did not go back to that market. Why? Because my target customer had changed. The couples that I was reaching at the university who were showing up at that farmer's market were very low budget weddings, which is awesome because they're able to order from a different baker who fits that need. But I had shifted, my product had changed, my target customer had changed. And I was doing very custom, colorful, whimsical, personalized cakes that came at a higher cost. And so I knew I wasn't going to book any cakes if I showed up there. I was out of budget. And so instead, I started doing other things that connected me to my customers, mainly connecting with different wedding planners who are high end, connecting with venues, connecting with bridal shops, places where I knew those higher end customers were going to be. Do you see how it shifted? And I was very conscious and very intuitive about who my people were and who I was trying to serve. And it changed where I decided to show up. So now we get to step 3. Step 1, identify your target customer. Step 2, oh, sorry, I guess we kind of skipped step 2 just a little bit, but we talked about it a bit. It's to build your message, to build like what you're actually putting out there, to build your brand. It's like you need to know who you're talking to, what you're going to say, and then like how you're going to get that message to them, right? So we've looked at who our customer is. The second thing is building out your message and building out your brand so that, again, it speaks to your customer. It's really funny. I see a lot of people brand their businesses based off of, their personal likes. They make a logo based off of like what they like and their colors or what they like. And it's like we have an aesthetic that we enjoy as the business owner, which is great and it's okay. But we also want to make sure that everything we do with our brand speaks, again, back to that target customer, because that's the whole point of who we're trying to reach. Like I said earlier, our brains are tuned to filter out anything that doesn't matter to us personally. And our brains will filter out things that aren't going to help us do what we need to do. And so if people come across your brand or your business and it doesn't speak to them, they're going to forget it. It's not going to stick in their brain. Their brain's going to just filter it out because it wasn't of importance to them. So it's really key to keep that in mind as you're crafting like captions or images or graphics or your logo, and really starting to build the feel and the emotions of your brand. Because your brand is not just your logo, your brand is the way people feel and the experience, the entire experience they have as they interact with you as a business. So you build that towards your customer. Number 1, identify who that customer is. Number 2, build your brand, build your message. And then number 3, that's when we actually decide how are we going to get it there.
So pull out your notes. Who are we thinking your target customer is? What platforms are they on? Social media wise, are they on Instagram, Facebook? Where do they live? Where do they shop? Where do they go? Where are these people, right? So there are 4 methods of ways to communicate your marketing. There are 4 kind of channels that you can choose from, and I'm going to break them all down for you. So the first one is traditional print. That's your first method that you're able to reach someone with your marketing message. That's like flyers, business cards, printed in a magazine. It's like, think old-fashioned kind of marketing where something actually kind of comes out of a printer and it's a physical thing that exists somewhere in the world, and you can reach people that way. What's kind of fun about that is it can be serendipitous. Like, you could reach people in a way that you get a lot of the same on social media. You only get like what you're interested in and what the algorithm pulls up. But it's kind of fun when it's traditional, like people that you wouldn't expect can bump into it. And you can very strategically position where those printed items go. If it's business cards, like you can put them in a wedding dress shop. You can put them at a venue. If it's a printed magazine, you can be in like the bridal magazine that's for your state. And we'll break down, I'm going to talk to you about how to evaluate these opportunities. And it's okay. I'm going to go over just a little bit, Emily. I hope that's okay. I want to make sure we get through all this. So that first is the traditional print. That's your first method of marketing. The second is digital, right? That's social media, that's the internet, that's Facebook, that's all of the internet world that exists, which is really, really cool because of a lot of it's free, right? We're able to connect with so many of our target customers for free, and we don't have to have any like initial outlay of money to even get the thing out there. So digital, awesome. The third is your network. Now you've got three different kind of ways that your network works. There's your personal network, your friends and your family, who usually are your first customers. And then as you grow very quickly, they are not your customers anymore because they've gotten so used to like, this is where the value is. I've always gotten it for free, and you price them out pretty fast. That's just been my experience. So you've got your personal network, and then you have your professional network. That's like the people that you're able to know that are in your industry, those planners, photographers, fellow bakers, the venues, whoever else is in that professional network. Maybe it's a printer. I've really gotten to know the print shop in my town and the library in my town. They're part of my professional network, and they actually gave me my very first order here in this new city was the Nephi Library. So having that network can be really great because other professionals, if they've got a good relationship with you, they'll speak for you and they'll share your information with their customers. The third facet of your network is your customers, right? And that's huge. Your own customers. Can we just take a second to be so grateful for the people who do give us orders? I just see, I know we gripe a lot about people nitpicking and about people, you know, not understanding, like, don't they get that I can't do that the next day, that I can't just crank that out, and that it doesn't cost this. But isn't it so great, the people who do order from us and the people who keep us in business? Like, let's just send a little bit of good energy out to those people and feel that gratitude for them because they're awesome. We love our customers. And keeping that love in our hearts for them helps us to go in the right direction as business. So you've got your network of all of those different people and kind of, you know, links on your web that you can connect with. And networking is really about building relationships. It's not about showing up and saying like, hey, can you do this for me? Can you tell people about me? But it's about, you know, it's a trade, it's a relationship. It's showing up to that venue and saying, oh my gosh, your venue is gorgeous. I'm also a wedding professional. How can I help support you? Can I like come to your expo that you're doing? Can I offer consultations to your clients? Like if someone's showing up at the venue, I'm happy to come and I'll bring my cake and I'll sit down with them and we'll just make it a fun experience and they can knock two out at once. And how can I help your customers? And instead of just showing up and asking, make it a trade, make it a relationship. And my friend Rachel, Cakes by Rach, we had a great conversation about this because so many of her orders come from the local venue that's close by, and it's a high-end venue and she gets lots of amazing clients. They pass every single person to her, and it's not because she came and asked them to. It's because when she showed up for the first time and delivered a cake there, she was professional, she was polite, she was so complimentary of them and easy to work with, and they fell in love with her because she just showed up with that kind, bright, like here to serve kind of energy. And they were like, yes, you're the kind of person I want to work with. And it was so natural. And more people have kind of like caught on to how great she is because she just shows up, and it's never about her. It's always about serving the couple and the wedding. And she just is so helps people feel so seen And when she talks to a wedding planner, she just raves to them about how awesome they are in their work, and it's never about her. And I think that's what speaks to people. Once again, back to that idea that our brain just forgets things that don't connect with us, things that don't actually resonate with us. And so when someone shows up and they see you and they speak to you and they see all the good work that you've done, and there's like, they make you feel that way, they're going to remember you. That's how you network. You build those relationships. Okay. So your channels for actually getting your message out, you've got traditional print, you've got digital, you've got your network, and then the fourth one is events. Events like expos, markets, boutiques, shows, things like that. Those are places where, like in my farmers market, you're actually able to have a connection and a conversation with a physical person, and they can actually see your work up close. You can give samples. So they can be really, really great ways to connect with people. So now that we've learned a little bit about those four, that's pretty much it. That's like any of your marketing methods, it's going to fall into one of those four categories. So how do you decide where to put your resources and your efforts? How do you decide? So this is what you do when you're considering where you want to market. The first thing is target customer. Who's your target customer, and is this going to reach them? I know for a fact, because I've tested it several times, my target customer is not on Facebook, because my brides are younger than the Facebook generation and they just don't have Facebook. They don't use it. They're on Instagram. And maybe someday that's going to shift. Maybe someday they'll all be on TikTok and I'll have to get a dang TikTok and do that. But for now, that's where they are. And so I don't put a lot of effort and time into Facebook marketing for cakes, because that's not where my brides are. I spend more time on Instagram. I have a website because I know that the first place people go when they're looking for product or services, they Google it. And I knew if I could come up in Google, that would be huge. That would be a great way to stand apart and to connect myself with customers. So you think, is this going to connect me with my target customer? If you're going to a market or an event, let's say you're like a vegan sweets business, don't go to the Sugar High Expo as a vegan sweets business, because that's not where your vegan people are. And even if you're like, it's so good though, like they're not even gonna be able to tell it's vegan. It's not what's important to them, right? They if someone's at the Sugar High Expo, they're there to eat all the chocolate, everything, and they don't really care if it's sugar-free, gluten-free, vegan, whatever. If you're selling vegan products, go to like a vegan farmers market and find your people there. Go to other kinds of things where those people are. So think about who your target market is. That's the first question you're going to ask. If someone comes to you and they're like, oh, here's a marketing opportunity, does it connect with my target customer? Have any of you ever had influencers come to you and want to collaborate, meaning they want something for free in return for sharing it? When someone comes to you, when you have influencers, businesses, anybody comes to you and they say, let's make a trade. You make the cake and I'll share it. The first thing you're going to ask, who's your audience? I want your media kit. I want to know what your audience stats are, who they are, where they are, what age they are. My business coach is Kathy Heller. She is fantastic, phenomenal. And she was telling us the other day that the marketing team for the Kardashians reached out to her and wanted to do like a collaboration with her. They wanted to promote her stuff, and it was going to be some kind of it was going to be a paid agreement even. And she told them no. The Kardashians, she told them no. They've got millions in their audience, right? Huge audience. But what she knew is that her audience is women of a certain age and certain interests. And a whole heck of a lot of the Kardashians audience is dudes who like to look at pretty girls, right? And so it was not a match. It didn't matter how many people they had. It didn't matter if there's millions in the audience, because it didn't align with her target market, didn't align with her customers, and it wasn't going to propel her business in the right way. It wasn't going to be a fit for the resources and the energy. And so if someone comes to you, that's the first thing you ask is, I want to see your audience. I want to know about your audience. If you're doing an event, or it's a magazine or anything like that, ask them about their audience in the past. If it's an event like an expo, you want to know, okay, what kind of people come to these? Like what kind of brides, or what kind of, people come through here? Is it like a younger crowd, an older crowd? Get to like ask those questions. If you're going to invest time and money into that, like the least they can do is supply you with a little bit of information about who they expect to come. And it's in their best interest that they do that, because then you can both align together and it helps both of you to be on the same page. So the first thing you do, ask yourself, is this going to reach my target market? And then the second thing you do when you're evaluating an opportunity is, what's the likelihood of a positive ROI? ROI is return on investment. That means, what's the likelihood that what I get out of this is going to be equal or greater to what I put into it? So if you are going to put an ad in a bridal magazine, and I use brides a lot because that's just what I work with, but it doesn't have to be a bridal magazine. It could be something else. But if you're going to put an ad in a magazine and it's $150, right, for this ad, and it's going to run for so long, you need to know, how much it costs, $150. How many customers is it going to take to break even and plus? Because we're not interested in just breaking even, right? We actually want to make money. We want to actually convert sales. So if it's $150 for this ad, and you're selling wedding cakes, you probably might just need one customer to at least break even and make a little bit. And to make it really worth it, you probably want a couple, maybe 4, right? And then you look at the data based on past data from like how many people come to this event, or how many subscribers these people have. And you already know they're your target customers, right? You already know they're the right people. You just need to know some data about, okay, how many people are coming? How many people are going to see this? And what's the likelihood that I can get those 4 customers to actually match my investment into it? And feel it out. Is that really possible? If you're going to go to an expo, let's say you're going to a bridal expo, and it's going to cost you, $100, $200, $300 for a booth there. But if you're signing people up right there, if you're having consultations right there on the spot and booking people, and they're going to have 1,000 people come through in a day, that might be worth your time. That return on the investment might be there, because if you just need to book, 4 or 5 people to make it worth it, then it seems like a good opportunity. So that's always what I do when evaluating opportunities. Is my target customer there? And what's the return on the investment like? What's the likelihood that I can actually make profit from it? So you guys, now based on everything that we've covered, we've talked about your target customer, you've had some thoughts, we've talked about different methods to reach people. And I honestly think you know what the next step is. So I want you to write down, what's one easy thing that you can do tomorrow to market your business? This is something no cost, free. What's one thing you can do? Jot it down. You can make a post. You can send an email. You can reach out to a planner. You know what I'm going to do? I'll tell you what I'm going to do tomorrow. I had a consultation on Saturday, and I have extra samples because it's hard to make just a couple. So I have a few extra samples. I'm going to walk into a few shops in town. I'm going to introduce myself and say, hi, my name is Brette. I just moved here and I started a cake business. I'm just checking out the town, bringing some cake around. Like, here's some cake for you. Here's my business cards. Could I put a few in your shop? And I'm just going to start to connect with the local industry here. That's what I'm doing tomorrow. But you don't have to do something that complicated tomorrow. You can just do something as easy as making a post on your personal page. I guarantee you feel like you're in the spotlight when you talk about your business, You feel like everybody knows what you're doing. You feel like everybody already knows I do cake. I talk about it all the time. Like I need to stop talking about it or they're going to get bored of it, right? But the reality is that's the spotlight effect. You feel like you're in the spotlight, but not everybody is seeing your posts. Not everybody knows what's going on and they're not remembering it. And so the more you can show up and be in the minds of your personal network and your professional network, that is so important, because when we go to buy something or when we go to hire someone for something, the first place we're going to go is the first person off the top of our mind, right? If you wanted to hire a carpet cleaner tomorrow, if your aunt's like friend does carpet cleaning and she talks about it to you all the time, like, oh yeah, this little business she does, you're going to be like, oh yeah, she's got a business. Like, hey, can you give me her phone number? That's the first place you're going to go. And so the more fresh you can stay in people's minds, the better. So maybe it's as simple as just putting that post out there again, saying like, hey, I've been really loving doing cakes and I'm looking to book for the next year. Like if you know anyone, just send them my way. Here's my website or here's my phone number. You can give them however it is that they contact you. But I want you to write down one thing. What's one easy thing? Easy, simple thing. Don't make it complicated. Let this be easy. What's one simple thing you can do tomorrow to connect, to get your message out there, to get your business in front of people, to remind them that it's there? What's one thing? And then I want you to write down one longer term marketing method that you want to maybe look into. And I'm pretty sure that you know internally what this is. I think you've either been thinking about it or you want to try it, or after the session today, you're like, oh, I think I've got an idea. I want you to write one way you're going to explore, maybe doing more of like a marketing campaign that's a little more intensive. Like maybe it does cost money. Maybe you will invest into it a little bit. Investing into marketing is a really great thing to do. I set aside money in my business every single month to do some marketing, and every month I change, where it goes and what I do with it. But it's great to write down, one thing that you want to do to reach your customers. So write those down, share them in the chat, and then we'll have some Q&A. We'll circle back to some of the questions that I missed earlier. But write it in the chat. What are some of the things you're going to do? I want to hear. I want to hold you accountable for it, because that's why you're here today, for some accountability. That's what we need. It's funny because I think we all know, if we were to sit down and think about this, it would probably be pretty clear to us, like, oh, I know what I need to do. And what we really need is for someone to just say, yeah, but do it. Push yourself off the ledge and go do it. And a lot of times we don't, because we're scared, right? We're scared of rejection. We're scared of like putting ourselves out there, stepping outside of our box. And that's really what we're trying to overcome. Before we dive into Q&A, the last thing I want to tell you is they've done studies on the brain, right? They've done brain scans and studies about emotion. And they found out that the emotion that actually lights your brain up the most is not love, and it's not hate, it's not anger, and it's actually enthusiasm. And it's contagious. When you bring enthusiasm into your business and your marketing and your relationships, it lights other people up. So your number one job as you're going out to do this is to have that enthusiasm for what you're doing. People love it. It's like fire. It just catches, and it helps make an impact. It helps them get excited for what you're doing. So have enthusiasm, leave the fear behind, and keep showing up, keep being there.
If you're dropping off samples, like you mentioned, you had some extras, you would drop them off at a local business. Would you label them?
Yes. Sorry, Emily, I couldn't hear you very well, and I think that's my fault.
Oh, no, that's okay. So we got a question. It was
about labeling,
you were talking about dropping off some extras that you had at local businesses. Would you label those extra samples that you're dropping off?
Yeah. I will label them. I have business stickers that I'll stick on so people know who I was. And as per like cottage food law, whatever your laws are in your state, if you're not having like contact with them, then you'll want to put like your address on it and all that information, that label information that may or may not be required depending on your state, because every state is different. But I plan on having personal contact. It's a gift. I'm not actually selling it or anything. And so I'll drop it off with some business cards. They'll have my stickers on them, and I'm going to have a conversation with them, and I'm going to find out more about their business and how I can support them. Because then they're going to remember me, because I'm the girl who's like, I'm here to help you. How can I send people your way? And then I'm going to tag them on Instagram. And then I'm going to say, oh, I went to the barber shop today and they were so cool. Like, go and check it out, guys. And that's what's meaningful to them. And they're going to want to reciprocate. They're going to want to go like, wow, that's so nice. Like, oh, hey, let's share it with our customers and let's put the sign up that she dropped off, and just have those real connections. But yes, I do plan on labeling them for just the purposes of people knowing who I am.
And local businesses love to support other local businesses. So why not?
It's so true. It's so true.
If you guys have any questions for Brette, drop them in the Q&A or in the chat, and we'll answer as many as we can. Brette, we have one other question. What's one marketing activity that you wish that you had done sooner for your business, that you had started earlier, or, had tried first, or something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've actually never thought about that. Like, one thing I wish I'd done sooner, because one of my biggest things that brings in orders for me is my website. And I did invest in that right off the bat. Because I knew, like I said, if people could Google me and I could come up, that would be really key. And I also wanted to look professional. I wanted to have a presence that I could control more than you can on social media. I wanted to be able to present my portfolio and my flavors and my contact information and all of that. And I just felt that intuitively when I was starting up. I just knew, I was like, I need some kind of online presence in that way. And so it was one of the first things that I did invest in, and it paid itself off in a week or two because of the orders that were able to come through, because people were actually able to find me. And that was really big. I'll tell you one thing that I did invest in that didn't work for me. And I want you to make sure when I'm telling you this, I'm not telling you that it's a completely useless resource. And I'm not telling you that it's not going to work for you, because we are in different markets. And so you have to truly step back and evaluate for yourself. And sometimes do a small scale test if you can. Like I was saying about my Facebook ads, I put $5 here and there just to test the audience. If you can do that with some of the marketing opportunities you have, like try out a small market and see if it works before you pay for like a bigger, like the whole summer or like every event that they're doing. Like test things out and approach marketing with this experiment mindset. It's not a one and done. It's like a continuous process of getting feedback and learning and growing from that. So with that being said, one of the things that I did invest in that did not profit me at all was a professional listing on Wedding Wire and The Knot. And it was like one of those, they sent me an email and they're like, let's set up a call. And I was like, oh, it couldn't hurt to have a call. And so we had a call and they went through their whole presentation, their whole spiel. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm still not sold on it. And he's like, let me talk to my manager. And then he comes back and he's like, we can get it for this price. And I was like, it's still not. And so one more time, he's like, okay, we can do a year at this price. And it ended up being $80 a month. And I had to sign a year contract to be on the Wedding Wire and The Knot. And then $80 a month, I couldn't get out of that contract. It was just for a year. And I did that whole kind of thing in my mind where I was like, oh, okay, the return on investment, if I get one order from this, it's going to work, right? And what I didn't evaluate was, is my target audience here? And the thing is, they weren't. And so I didn't get a lot of orders, and I got a lot of leads, but they were never quite the right leads. And there was just some weird things about the platform where people could kind of just shotgun messages out to everybody. like every single baker that there was or every single venue. And so you didn't get a lot of response. And it ended up, I just spent the whole year like, I can't wait for this subscription to end because it's just sucking $80 a month from me. And I was getting orders other places too. And I think it's really good to try out some of the free methods and the networking. Like you don't have to put a lot of money into that. And so it's great to put a lot of your effort into those things and maybe choose one of those higher cost, maybe the ad in the magazine or maybe being at an expo, like when you're ready or when you've got those resources and test that out. But there's so much you can do just for free on social media and just being a real person, a real human being and connecting with the different people that exist in the world around you. And that can do a lot itself. So don't feel like you have to have a huge marketing budget. Hopefully that answers your question and gives a little bit. I know it wasn't quite like the first thing I wish I'd done, but like just honestly, just show up, just keep putting it out there and remember that, you know, people want to know why it's relevant to them and rephrasing your business kind of in a meaningful way for them.
As far as keeping your menu or your product offerings kind of in check, do you usually suggest that bakers and food entrepreneurs keep their menu to a minimum, or should they have a wide variety? How do you balance that in your own business?
Yeah, I love this question. Okay, so I'm gonna answer it with a quick story. When I was first starting my baking business, I was low-key stalking other bakers around me and getting to know what they were doing. So I was checking out their websites and everything. And I came across this baker who had a really beautiful portfolio and she obviously was really good at what she did. And I got to her menu and it was literally an entire 3 pages of flavors. And I got overwhelmed. I wasn't even trying to pick. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I knew, I was like, it's too much. Because people have a lot on their plates and they want you to show up as the expert, right? When I ask people, what flavor do you want? People know 3 flavors. They know chocolate, vanilla, and funfetti. And that's like all exists in there. And some people are like, oh yes, I know red velvet. I know that one. And some old people are like, do you remember when there was carrot cake at weddings? Yeah, it used to be carrot cake. But you know that there's so much more out there. And so the goal is to not overwhelm them, but come and be the expert and guide them through that ordering process. I had an interview with 2 of my customers. We did it live and I interviewed 2 customers that I'd had and I asked them about their experiences ordering because they'd ordered from different bakers before. They were like veteran cake, custom cake customers. And so as I was asking them, both of them said it was really nice to see a menu because they just didn't know. They wanted someone to take their hand and listen to what, you know, their preferences were and make suggestions and like help them pair the right things. They wanted someone to be the professional. And I think that it's just so smart. When you've got a menu, it helps streamline your production. You don't have to go out and buy random ingredients because someone asked for chocolate cake with passion fruit mousse and strawberries, you know. You've got like these set flavors that you do and you do them well, right? And it's okay if you add some later, but I feel like it's really good to fine tune a small product offering before you scale it bigger, like really become known for these core things that you do. It helps streamline your production. It helps people just feel like you know what you're doing. They show up and they expect it. Like, can you imagine if you showed up at a drive-through and there was nothing on the board and they're just like, just tell us what you want and we'll like tell you what if we have it or if we can do it, and then you're gonna drive away and go find a different drive-through. So really important to make sure your order process is so smooth and so seamless, and having a set menu just really speaks for your professionalism and helps serve your customers better.
Shameless plug for cast iron here, because I have to, you know, I can't help myself.
Yes.
You can build your custom order form right in cast iron, ask all the questions that you need to know to give someone an estimate, to collect the information that you would need to be able to make someone's cake or charcuterie board or meal prep or whatever it might be, you know. So plug for cast iron.
Yes, absolutely.
we
They make
got
it
a
really
question-
easy to set up shop and
Yeah, that's
have
our
it
goal.
just you look like a professional when people show up there. It's easy for them to order, and that is everything to a customer.
We got a question. Do you charge for consultations with customers?
I do charge for consultations. And so here's my take on that. If you're offering them for the very first time and it scares you out of your pants to sit down with a customer and have that face to face, offer your first one free to someone and give yourself that risk-free opportunity to learn in the space where you're not like, oh my gosh, they paid for this and I have to show up and it's really scary. Like, offer one to, like, if a bride comes to you, say like, hey, I'd love to offer a free consultation, and try it for the first time for free. And then after that, start charging when you're comfortable with it. And start charging really quick. Like, don't use your time and your ingredients for free for too long, but get comfortable with it. And then yes, you can start charging. And there's a lot of different ways you can charge. You can charge, just a straight up fee, and that's it. Like, they pay that fee and that covers the consultation. You can do it where whatever they pay, if they book with you, then it goes towards their cake. And that's actually what I do. When I first started charging for consultations, I think I did like $35 for a 45-minute consultation with 3 different flavors. And now I charge $50 for a consultation. And then it goes towards their order. If they book at the consultation, then it goes credited towards their order. So there's some different strategy that you can kind of apply in order to help it feel worth it and valuable for the customer. But even my $50 fee, people pay it all the time. I have consultations all the time. And people kind of take that more seriously, honestly. When it costs $50 just to meet with you, they kind of know you're a little bit bigger of a deal, or you know what you're doing more. You've got that confidence, because price sends that message when you show up with saying like, this is $50 just to meet with me. It sends that message of like, this is someone that has so much confidence that they can charge that, and we're looking for someone who's confident in what they can do. So that's kind of how I do my consultations. I used to also offer tasting boxes that were like to go. People could pick them up and take them home and taste. And those were like $10 or $15. And that was kind of during COVID. And so that's why I offered that. But there's like lots of different ways you can kind of creatively serve your customers in that way. And I saw the question pop up, how do I do my samples? Do I bake 3 different cakes? I do small, like quarter batches of my batter. I do the math and I make a small batter. And what I'll do is I'll make just like single layer cakes. And I take a little cookie cutter and I punch out little circles. And then I put them in cups and I layer them with like a little circle of cake, the frosting, the filling, little circle on top, and I put a lid on it. And that keeps it fresh and it helps it feel like a cake. I never liked to do cupcakes for my tastings. Totally fine if you do. I didn't feel like it represented the actual like flavor and the complexity of like a layered cake. It was kind of a different experience. And so I like to do it that way to help it feel like an actual slice of cake without making 3 different cakes. So I'll punch out my little circles and I'll make all my different buttercreams. And I've gotten good at it. The first time it was slow and I was like, oh my gosh, I just made all these different flavors. And now because I have a set menu and I make the same flavors over and over again and I have the same ingredients, doing samples is not a problem. And when I have extras, because like I said, there's always a few extras. It's hard to make just one slice of cake or one sample. I sell them as like discounts. I had a VIP group when I was in Springville, when I was focusing on Hobble Creek Cake Co. I had like 35 women in this group who were like, when you have extras, you tell me. And so we were in this message and I would just post and be like, hey, don't respond in this thread, but this is what I have. DM me if you want it. Like, thanks so much. Have a good weekend. And they would sell instantly. Like all the extras I had were always gone. People bought them so fast. And partly that was because I built a brand reputation. People saw what I did. I was constantly posting and sharing, because the very first time I ever tried to sell extras, like before I'd ever even started a business, I didn't sell anything because I had no reputation behind me. And so part of that is just building up that reputation so that when you have extras, people are like, give them to me now. Like, I know they're going to go so fast. But the second thing I'm going to do is I use them for marketing and networking. That's what I'm going to take tomorrow to the shops. I'm going to take my extra samples, and you can kind of plan it so that all of your consultations fall on the same weekend, so that, you know, you kind of batch create for different clients. So it just takes a little bit of planning and then getting creative with how to use any extras that you have.
One quick question. How soon in your business process did you get a website?
It was the first thing I did.
Before you even started doing anything, you had a website.
I guess, okay. So I guess once I made the transition from this is a hobby to like, this is a business, right? Once I got very intentional that like, I want customers, because before that I was in school. And so I just didn't have the time. We were running like 100 miles an hour, doing school and then working, and like we would get home at 10 o'clock and do homework. And so I just didn't have the bandwidth to run an actual business. But after having my first baby, and so I would do cakes like here and there just as they came up. I wasn't actively advertising. It would just be like a friend would be like, oh, I know you do cakes. Will you make my birthday cake? Or will you make our boss like a retirement cake? And so it was very far and few in between cake orders. And then the first thing I did when I was graduating, and I was going to lose my job because it was a student job. And once you graduated, you had to be done. And so I was going to have a few months between graduating and having my first baby. I was like, I'm going to bake. I'm going to do this. And so I built a website right away. That one I didn't invest in actually going premium. I just did the free version, and it brought in orders. And then I took a break after having my first baby. And when I actually officially was like, okay, now the real thing, like I'm registering, I'm doing all the licensing, and this is going to be my career. That's when I did invest in a website and worked on it a little bit more. So yeah.
Love it. We got a question about how you connect with event planners in venues. How do you find them? How do you build those relationships? How do you network with them? Where do you start?
Yeah. So the best way to start that relationship, follow them on Instagram and give yourself like a 30-day period to just build a relationship, and just like start liking their stuff, start commenting, be very genuine, be very complimentary, send them a client. If you know someone, like say, oh my gosh, go to them and tell them that I sent you. Or, you know, share it in your story. Say like, oh my gosh, isn't this venue gorgeous? Or like, don't you just love this girl's work? She looks like she does such a good job. And just start to like build them up and support them. And then when you're ready, when you kind of like built those seedlings, then reach out and say like, hey, I would love to meet up and have coffee, or I'd love to like meet up and have lunch. Can I take you to lunch and let's just chat? I'd love to hear your thoughts on the wedding industry or your thoughts on the party planning industry. I just did this last week because there's one venue here in town. And I was like, I want to do cakes there. And so that's what I did. I followed her. I got to know her. I finally sent her a little message and I was like, hi, I just want to introduce myself. I just moved in and people have told me like, you're the best in town. I've heard so much good stuff about you. And if there's any way I can help and support you, please let me know. And she sent me a voice message right back. And she was like, oh my gosh, it's so nice to meet you. And we started talking, and I just said, I was like, let's meet up sometime. Like there's a coffee shop down the street. Can I meet you there on Tuesday? And she was like, absolutely. So we sat down and we had a nice, great conversation. And I got to hear her story and I got to share some of mine. And so it was a really great way to connect. And now we've got that established relationship. So that's what I recommend doing. Just be a friend, be a supporter to other people, and go have lunch with them, go meet up with them and get to know them. And really that's that's kind of just how you do it.
Plus, it's fun to get out of the house and go hang out with
Yes.
someone new. We got a question from Diane. She is a one woman show, one man show, you know, just like a lot of us. If you're a little nervous about really ramping up your marketing because you're afraid that you might get more orders than you can handle, what would you say?
That's a good question. So if you're just starting out, then don't be too afraid of that. Like first just let it happen. Let the orders come. and just know maybe what your limits are. I love to write it down. In my business plan, I set myself some rules. This is my order capacity. Like this many wedding cakes a week, or this many birthday cakes, or this kind of combination. And like once I hit my max, I say no. I have a copy and paste message so that I don't have to think about it. And once I'm like, oh, I'm booked, I just copy, paste, send, done. Like I don't even have to think about it anymore. Is it scary that you won't be able to say no? Like you don't think you could physically say no because you're a yes kind of person? Or are you just scared like, yeah, you're going to burn out, you're going to get overworked, or you're not working that fast? Scary that you can't create everything and still have your day job. Okay, gotcha. So if you've got a day job, yeah, I think just knowing what your capacity is and just knowing that even if you have to turn people away, it's going to be okay. If your capacity, if you don't have the bandwidth to take on like tons of orders, then you probably don't want to go to like a huge show and book like tons and tons of people, right? And so maybe you choose marketing channels that are lower cost, that don't take that much of an input monetarily from you, and that still connect you with people, but don't have quite that kind of trade-off of like return on investment. Like I've got to take this many to make back what I spent. Maybe focus on some lower cost ways and until your schedule opens up, until you get to a point where your capacity is more, and then start pushing your marketing more. But also don't be afraid, because like having too many orders come in isn't a problem as long as you're able to have that self-regulation to say no and to control your schedule, because you ultimately, you are the boss, you're in control of it. And so if you don't want to give yourself overtime, then don't, right? You don't have to, you're not at the mercy of like what everyone's asking you to do. And I think you can feel that out and make those decisions that are best for your schedule and for your life.
I'm gonna give you two because one is really quick to answer.
Okay.
What is your best selling flavor cake?
My best selling flavor is, I call it bride's favorite on my menu because it is I like want to signal to people this is the one. And it's chocolate cake with raspberry filling and a cream cheese buttercream. It's like the year round favorite of everybody.
Sounds delicious. And then last question from Brianna. Do you charge for your wedding or custom cake sketches? And if so, how do you let customers know? Because a lot of her customers want to see what the cake might look like before they commit.
That is a really good question. And I feel like I've got two perspectives about it. When I'm doing wedding cakes, I don't send them a sketch, like a color sketch, until they've booked the cake. And so I tell them, like, most of my people were able to decide in the consultation like what they're looking for by looking at references, or a lot of them want some of my own designs, and so we just go with one of those. But I do always provide a sketch once they've booked, just to make sure we're on the same page. Having a sketch of what you plan to do helps eliminate so many miscommunications and difficult situations. And the reason I started doing it was because I had one customer where it was kind of a loose conversation, and it wasn't a wedding cake, it was just a birthday cake, but she was very much like, it doesn't matter, like she's only 13, it's not a big deal. And she didn't want to pay for some of those higher end like additions like fondant flowers and things. And so I was like, cool, she doesn't care, I'm going to kind of modify the design to fit like what she's looking for. And she ended up being really unhappy with what I did. And it was very, kind of a brutal confrontation because it was in person. We weren't even talking over the phone. It was like face to face. I gave her the cake and she was like, this is not what I wanted. And so that was really uncomfortable. And I realized like, oh, like there was fault on her part for leaving it so open-ended to me. But then also I wish I would have had communicated like, this is what I intend to do. So for me, once someone books with me, I love to send them a sketch, even if it's a birthday cake, just so like I know that I'm doing exactly what this sketch is. And I make my sketches in Canva because I can't draw. I can paint and I can do cake, but I can't draw. And so I use Canva to put together just like a little mock-up. It's usually just to help with placement and color coordination and make sure like those kind of elements are in the right spot. And so as far as charging for them, with weddings, it's always after they book. But I also have this understanding that confused customers don't buy. And if somebody like has doubts about what's going to happen, and they don't have a clear vision of how it's going to turn out, then it's harder for them to invest that money. And so sometimes it's helpful if you're not doing like a really fancy like custom design cake, if it's like a kitty cat cake and they just need to have an idea that you understand what they're saying, you can mock something up in Canva real easy. Just like make a square, turn it a color, and like you can place elements to represent like a topper or whatever kitty cat ears you're putting on, and send it to them. And then it doesn't take a lot of your time, but they're able to know like exactly what direction you're going in. So I would feel it out anytime that you're actually going to spend some energy and some time or create something very custom. That comes at a cost, that money, that's an energy trade-off. And so make sure that it's equal, that the customer is paying you the equal amount to equal that energy that you're putting out. Well, I want to say thank you so much to everyone for being here tonight. I know it's a Tuesday night. You've got lots going on, and the fact that you chose to be here, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And to everyone joining after the fact too, who's going to watch the recording, thank you for coming. Like this energy that we get to share, we need this. We live off of this. Like we really need each other and the support. So I hope you enjoyed tonight, and I hope I'll see you at the next ones, and hope I'll see you on Instagram, and let's keep connecting.